Howdy folks, hope you've all had a great weekend and welcome to another episode of Mingles with Jingles, where I, just for a change, do actually have quite a bit to talk about. Beginning with, it was announced on the 25th, there's a brand new Warhammer game coming out. And just for a change, it's not Warhammer 40k, it's Warhammer Age of Sigmar, the artist formerly known as Warhammer Fantasy Battle, at least the last time I played it. Yeah, that was a really long time ago. I used to play when I was in high school, in the 80s. All right, anyway, enough. So, yeah, Warhammer Age of Sigmar, Realms of Ruin, was announced on the 25th. It's being published by Frontier Foundry. And I haven't played it yet, but I did get to see a presentation. And it looks all right. I mean, I'm not a massive RTS fan, but it's Warhammer. I'm far from an expert on this subject either, because I basically know almost nothing about Warhammer Age of Sigmar. It's fantasy 40k basically. You've got these guys, the Stormcast Eternals, and they're basically Space Marines. And then you got, well, the bad guys. Now they're not orcs, okay? They're orcs, because you can't trademark orc. So they're orcs. That's right, you can trademark orc. In the same way that you can't trademark Space Marine, but you can trademark Primaris Intercessor. So, yeah. And, yeah, I mean, it looks okay. I can't really tell you any more than that, because I haven't actually gotten to play it. But I suspect I will fairly soon. And as you can see, there's a beta test coming up where you will also be able to play it. One thing that I did like, that I noticed during the presentation, because I got a preview of all of this couple of weeks ago, but I've been sworn to silence until they did the official announcement, was the way they've modelled all of the characters and the units in-game. They didn't just make stuff up. They didn't even model all of the unit models based on art reference material direct from Games Workshop. Every unit, every character, and every monster in the game is based on an actual Warhammer Age of Sigmar miniature. So if you have an Age of Sigmar army, whether that be the Stormcast Eternals or the Not Orcs, those miniatures are represented in the game. And I thought that was really cool. So anyway, Warhammer Age of Sigmar, Realms of Ruin, coming out. I have no idea, but I'm pretty sure that there will probably be an announcement about some kind of beta test where you can sign up to have a go yourself relatively soon. Actually, you know, while we're on the subject of Warhammer, it's not been a bad year or two for Warhammer on PC. I mean, you've got Age of Sigmar Realms of Ruin coming out to scratch your RTS itch. We had the amazing Warhammer 40k Chaos Gate Demon Hunter and its expansion. There was Darktide, which it wasn't great, but it wasn't bad either. I mean, it suffered from a severe lack of polish and content immediately after release, but the devs have been hard at work on supporting and updating it. Then, of course, you've got the long-awaited Space Marine 2. Has it really been 10 years or more since the first Space Marine game? Wow. So, yeah, Space Marine 2 coming out, God knows. No idea. But currently in alpha, there's a game called Speed Freaks, and it's kind of like Orcs meet Mad Max. Actually, what's that game that... One of the games that Gaijin Entertainment do that isn't War Thunder. Crossout. Where you kind of design and build your own cars and then arm them to the teeth and race against other drivers and kill each other and so on and so on. It's kind of like that, but with orcs. So it's automatically better. The game's currently in alpha, and as alpha tests go, it's reported to be pretty stable. It's certainly a lot more stable than something like Star Citizen over the last month or so. And you can take part for free. Just search for Speed Freaks on Steam and have a go at Mad Max with orcs. Also coming out next month, almost this month, a game I've had on my Steam wishlist for a very, very long time. Aliens Dark Descent. Because aliens. It's a real-time... Imagine Warhammer 40k Chaos Gate Demon Hunters, but playing out in real time. So I saw the announcement trailer for this game, it must have been a year ago, and it's been on my Steam wishlist since. Because, I just thought, aliens. And the thing is, I watched the announcement gameplay trailer, and holy shit, I mean, I'm currently running Fireteam Elite here in the background. You see how fast these aliens are. How the hell are you possibly going to be able to react? Because if you watch the announcement trailer for Dark Descent, these things move like greased lightning. How the hell are you going to be able to react in time to swarms of aliens coming at you from all directions when you're controlling a squad of 4 or 5 at the same time? But they thought of that, and you don't actually apparently directly control your squad. You just issue orders. You're basically Lieutenant Gorman in the APC, issuing orders to the squad, and they will react based on the orders you've given them. And that seems like the smart way to do it, because I can't think of any other way of making it work. But that's coming out, I think, on the 20th of June. I am definitely going to be playing that. Oh, and if by any chance you're sitting there completely confused at my description and you're thinking, who the hell's Lieutenant Gorman and why is he sitting in the APC, then go and watch Aliens. It's easy for me to forget that this movie came out in 1986. It's nearly 40 years old. So not everybody's going to have seen it. If you haven't seen it, go and watch Aliens. It's one of the best movies ever made. I keep doing things like that and get utterly shocked by the generation gap. You might have seen me in World of Tanks or World of Warships making references to, well, that looks like a bit of an obvious ambush. I mean, I've seen a couple of John Wayne movies. I know an ambush when I see one. People are like, who the hell's John Wayne? Yeah, if you're under the age of 30, 35, 40, you've probably never heard of him. But yeah, educate yourselves, kids. John Wayne, one of the greatest Western movie stars ever. He was kind of like, for my dad's generation, what Clint Eastwood was like for me. And if you're sitting there thinking, who the hell's Clint Eastwood? We're done, all right? I've got nothing more to say to you. Go and watch Unforgiven. And if you like that, watch The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, and A Fistful of Dollars, and a few dollars more. And then The Outlaw Josie... Oh, actually, that reminds me. The Outlaw Josie Wales. Game-related story. I may have told you this before, but it would have been a really long time ago, and I can't remember either way. So, Star Wars, The Old Republic. In that game, as in many MMOs, you can unlock titles which will be displayed next to the name, floating above your character's head for all to see and be amused by. Another system that they introduced into Star Wars The Old Republic was what they call legacy names. So you've got a whole bunch of different characters on your account. You could kind of tie them all together by giving them the same legacy name, basically giving them the same surname. So for example, I had a Jedi Consular whose name was Callie, and then I picked the legacy... I can't even remember what the legacy surname was that I picked. Let's say Kessler. So she was Jedi Consular Callie Kessler. And that legacy surname, Kessler, would be displayed on every character that you'd included in your legacy. Essentially, they were all kind of related. They all had the same surname. Well, one of the other things that they did in Star Wars The Old Republic was titles. So by doing various different things, you could unlock titles. And the title would also be displayed next to your name. Now, one of the Republic character classes was the Smuggler. And one of the Smuggler's unlockable titles was the Outlaw. So I saw somebody wandering around, a Republic smuggler, whose name was Josie, whose legacy name was Wales, and was displaying the title, The Outlaw. He was the Outlaw Josie Wales. Genius. I did something similar on my Republic Trooper, actually. Because one of the titles that you could unlock on the Republic Trooper was Sergeant. So my trooper was called Rock. He was Sergeant Rock. And that's another reference that you need to be really, really old to get. Oh, okay. Sergeant Rock was a comics character. He had his own comic in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, I think. I don't know if it's still going, but it was a World War II comic, basically. Published by... Honestly, I don't know. Might have been Marvel, might have been DC. Couldn't tell you. Not that it matters. It was just, I was Sergeant Rock. You know, Star Wars The Old Republic is a game I've been thinking about maybe getting back into. I mean, it definitely went downhill when it went free to play. Although I have a lifetime subscription anyway because, you know, I bought the game. I wouldn't recommend trying to play it as free to play because it's not really free to play. You can play it for free, but all you're really playing is a sort of demo version. There's all sorts of things that you can't do. like talk to other characters or group up with other characters. I mean, it's ridiculously limited if you try to play it for free. But I have a lifetime subscription. Here's the problem, though. When I bought it, I bought a stupidly expensive edition that came with a statue of Darth Malgus and an authenticator key. Here's the problem. I still have the authenticator key, but the battery's died on it, so I can no longer log into my account. Oh, that's no problem. I'll just go to the Star Wars The Old Republic website and sort it out from there. Except it needs me to log in. Well, of course it does. I mean, obviously, for security reasons. The problem is I can't log in. That's the reason why I'm here. My authenticator died like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. So what now? Check their support site, see what to do there. Oh, hang on. This is being run by Electronic Arts now, isn't it? Oh, that's a bad sign. Okay, anyway, I'm at the support site. So, Star Wars The Old Republic, platform, PC, issue, tech support. Wants me to enter a keyword. Authenticator. Search. 0 support results. Shit. Okay. Well, the only remaining option is to contact support. Except 15 or however many years ago when I bought Star Wars The Old Republic and I created my account, I had a different email address. So any support replies are going to go to an email address that I no longer have. Oh, you know what? I just can't be bothered. It's not really that good a game anyway. Speaking of really, really old games that are actually very good, in fact, every bit as good as I remember them being, System Shock is out on Tuesday? Yes. It's coming out on the 30th. So tomorrow, System Shock, the remake in the Unreal 4 engine. And I've been kicking the arse out of the demo. Funny thing, I did actually get a code for the beta test version. The developers got me a version of the game for playtesting. And it's really kind of weird. Because there are certain things available in the beta version that are not available in the demo version, which you can get on Steam right now. The demo version's been available for a while now. You can fine-tune the difficulty settings of various different things that you'll do in the game, in the beta for playtesting version. But in the demo version, while you can't really change the difficulty settings much, what you can do is set resolutions greater than 1080p, which is what the maximum resolution available on the beta test version is. It looked to me, because I actually played the beta for playtesters version after I already played through the demo version on Steam 3 or 4 times, and it looks like the beta playtesting version is actually a fairly old build. It certainly looks a lot rougher around the edges. I mean, the gameplay's still great, but they've tweaked the way some of the puzzles work, so they're a bit more intuitive. The demo version appears to be a much, much closer representation of what the actual game is going to be like. Although I'm curious, because I am absolutely going to be playing it just to see exactly what has changed between the demo version and the full release coming out tomorrow. But I am definitely going to be playing this game. It is absolutely amazing. You know, there are certain really old games, and I suppose it's the same for every generation. I suppose if you ask people of a certain generation, well, any age really, you'll get different answers depending on how old the person you ask. For some people it'll be Super Mario 64, Mario Kart, or Star Fox, or, God help us, The Sims. But for people of my generation, we're talking about titles like The Secret of Monkey Island, Monkey Island 2, LeChuck's Revenge, and System Shock 1 and 2. Anybody who's played those games, when you just mention the name of the game, they will not be able to shut up talking about how amazing those games were. And yet, while the Monkey Island games enjoyed massive commercial success, hardly anybody bought and played the System Shock games. Well, I'm exaggerating slightly. They weren't massive flops in the way that, you know, Redfall is, but they weren't massive successes either. I don't think the original System Shock sold well enough to justify making a sequel, and yet they did make a sequel. System Shock 2 exists, but, well, the only reason System Shock 2 existed was, one, it was a labour of love for the developers. I mean, these were the games they really, really wanted to make, even if they weren't selling as well as they'd like. But they had published another game called Flight Unlimited, which was a serious competitor to Microsoft Flight Sim. and was a massive commercial success. And, well, basically, if Flight Unlimited hadn't been popular, they wouldn't have been able to afford to make System Shock 2. So hooray for Flight Unlimited. Because, wow, these are such good games. I mean, Flight Unlimited was a good game, but I'm talking about System Shock here. So there will be a System Shock video coming. We'll be taking a quick break from Dredge on Wednesday. Wednesday's video is going to be System Shock, the remake. Don't worry, Dredge will be back. And then I'm going to be kicking the arse out of System Shock and recording footage for a System Shock series. Like I said, the game's available tomorrow. It's on Steam, so you can get it yourself, play it yourself, and then see how your experience matches up against mine in my video coming out the day after on Wednesday. It's a date. I'll see you there. You know, I've often wondered about that, the fact that System Shock didn't really sell very well. I mean, things fail for all sorts of good reasons, usually because they're just not very good. Yes, Redfall, we're back to you again. But sometimes things that are very good fail anyway. Great example being Alex Garland's 2012 Judge Dredd movie starring Carl Urban. Amazingly good movie. I don't know a single person who has ever seen that movie and didn't love it. As opposed to the Sylvester Stallone Judge Dredd movie, which was absolutely diabolically bad, but which everybody has heard of because of the vast amounts of money that the studio pumped into marketing and advertising it. The complete opposite of what happened to the Carl Urban Dredd movie from 2012, where the studio wasn't interested and refused to spend any money on advertising and marketing, so it flopped. Despite being an infinitely superior take on the Judge Dredd character in every way imaginable. Writing, special effects, set design, casting, everything about it was better, made no money, didn't even make back its tiny budget. And yet, you can't say that about System Shock, because it did get a lot of advertising and marketing, and still hardly anybody bought and played it. I've heard people say, well, it was a very, very hard game, and yes, that's true. But all games were hard back then. I mean, people go on about how brutally difficult Dark Souls is, and it is. But that's what everything was like back then. Adventure and role-playing games in particular, they were absolutely brutal. In fact, going back to another game that I just mentioned, The Secret of Monkey Island by, LucasArts. Well, in fact, I think even LucasArts might have shut down now, but back then they were Lucasfilm Games. And this wasn't the first time they'd done a game like this, but it was certainly the most popular. They had previous titles like Maniac Mansion and Loom, where they'd come up with the revolutionary idea that a game should be fun to play and shouldn't just punish you for making the wrong decisions, especially when you had no way of knowing what the outcome of that decision was going to be at the time that you made the decision. For example, I can't actually think of the name of a contemporary early 90s graphic adventure title off the top of my head that wasn't a Lucasfilm game, but let's say you're playing, insert name of random early 90s graphic adventure here, and you're presented with, let's say you're playing Spy Quest, and you're a CIA agent, and right at the beginning of the game, relatively early on, you've only been playing like an hour or so, and you're trying to get through customs in some South American banana republic. So you have a briefcase, and in that briefcase you have a sidearm. Now, in order to get through customs, you're going to have to go through a metal detector. So your choice is, and you only have two choices, go through the metal detector with the briefcase that contains the sidearm or not. The correct choice is to obviously not try to smuggle a weapon through a customs checkpoint in a country run by a brutal military dictator, because if you do, you get shot. And that's it, game over. Go back to the start of the game and try again. The even more correct choice is in the previous room, right? It doesn't give you this option when you're actually at the checkpoint. You have to backtrack and go to the previous room and slip your briefcase into the cleaning trolley of the cleaning lady. Then make your way through the security checkpoint. And now, of course, you don't have concealed weapons, so you make it through just fine. Then you loiter around in the lobby and you just wait for the cleaner to come through, at which point you steal the briefcase back. Bingo, off you go. But the consequences for getting that decision wrong were absolutely brutal. Literally game-ending. Lucasfilm Games, such as they were at the time, were probably the first games developer to come up with a novel idea that you shouldn't be punished like that for just making a single bad decision. while playing a game. You couldn't even die in a LucasArts adventure game. It was not physically possible for your character to be killed. The worst thing that could happen was that you just wouldn't be able to progress past a certain point until you'd figured out how a puzzle worked. And you could either give up and go and do something else somewhere else in the game, because there were all kinds of puzzles that needed to be completed, or stick at it until you got it. But you wouldn't die. It wouldn't make you go right back to the beginning of the game. There's an element of that in System Shock, by the way, because it is a product of its time. I mean, games were brutally hard back then. And I'm really pleased they've kept this in, by the way, for the remake. They tried to keep things as realistic as possible. I mean, because there should be some consequences for making poor decisions. They just shouldn't necessarily end the game for you. And it kind of does end the game for you if you die when you're playing System Shock, but it also kind of doesn't. Because they've come up with a really clever way of putting an in-universe save system. See, on each level on Citadel Station, the medical facilities have been taken over by the station AI, Shodan, and have been co-opted. So if you die on any given level, the cyborgs take your body to the medical stations and they turn you into another cyborg, and that's game over. Start again from the beginning. But there's a switch on each level that allows you to flip the medical facilities back to their original purpose, to actually heal people. From that point on, you can still screw up and get yourself killed on that level. But once you flip that switch, the cyborgs that killed you will still take you to the medical station, because that's what they've been programmed to do. But instead of turning you into cyborg, because you've flipped the switch, because you've denied Shodan control of that particular level's medical facilities, instead it now functions as a basic, well, a respawn point. The medical facilities do what they're supposed to do. It's a genius way of putting... Because when you think about it, having a respawn in a shooter, it makes no realistic sense at all. I mean, I get why you do respawn in shooters like Call of Duty and Warzone and what have you, because if you didn't give the player the opportunity to recover from a mistake, they would never learn from their mistakes. It'd be like one shot, you're out, and new players would be constantly getting dominated by veterans. They'd never have the opportunity to learn and get better. So yes, from a practical gameplay perspective, I absolutely understand and agree with having infinite respawns when you're playing an online shooter. But it doesn't make any realistic sense. So what if you could come up with a way to have respawns in a shooter or an adventure game or a dungeon crawler or whatever, and have it make sense? And that's exactly what they did in System Shock. It's just, the whole game is riddled with touches of genius just like that. Of course, none of this explains why it didn't sell very well. I mean, I still to this day cannot figure that one out. Anyway, oh, the clock is ticking. One more day and I get to experience it again in all of its glory for the first time in nearly 30 years. And I know it's going to be good because I've played the demo and the demo's amazing. And the demo is basically the entire first level of Citadel Station. So, yeah. Oh, I can't wait. I haven't been this excited about a game since, oh, I don't know, Subnautica 2, I suppose. And we all know how that turned out. Oh, that's not fair. Subnautica 2 wasn't terrible. It just wasn't anywhere near as good as the original. It just wasn't great. But I already know that the System Shock remake is great because I've already played it. And tomorrow I get to play it again. Woohoo! It's so nice to actually get excited about a game coming out again. Because I feel like I've gotten so jaded in the last couple of years. There's all these new titles coming out, and generally all I think about them is, I mean, yeah, I'll give it a go. But I very rarely get excited about them anymore in the same way that I am absolutely stoked for System Shock. And you know what the best part is? How much are they charging for a full-price AAA title from the big publishers these days? It's up to $70 now, isn't it? Yeah, they sneak that one in, hopefully without anybody noticing. $70. And then you get your big AAA title downloaded and you install it and it runs like a dog on your system. And it's crap. The System Shock remake is half that price. And every bit of it is awesome. Sadly, nobody's paying me to tell you how great this game is. Although if anybody wants to throw some money in my direction for it, I will gladly accept. No, I'm doing this out of love for a great game from my childhood that's been remastered and redone, and I sincerely hope you guys get half the amount of fun out of playing it that I know I am going to, and already have been just from playing the demo. Right, anyway, that's enough about System Shock. We'll revisit this subject on Wednesday when I do my System Shock video. And then we'll get back to Dredge, because I've been having a lot of fun playing Dredge as well. And I'm surprised. I mean, I say surprisingly. It shouldn't be surprising, because it is a good game. But when it comes to YouTube, you can never really tell which games are going to work and which ones aren't. I mean, Bendy and the Dark Revival, I think, was a very good game, but hardly anybody bothered watching those videos. Dredge, on the other hand, also a very good game, but a very popular video series too. So, you know, that's always, it's nice when the two can interact. So, yeah, Dredge will be back. We'll be taking a brief break for System Shock on Wednesday, then Dredge will be back, and I'll be immersing myself in the world of Citadel Station and System Shock in prepping, whether you guys like it or not, I am doing a video series on System Shock. So that will come once we're done with Dredge. In the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. I hope you all had a fantastic weekend. And as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.